To people who are not familiar with the Shin Megami Tensei series, the games are often described as demonic Pokemon on steroids with the difficulty of Dark Souls games. So with those similarities, it's only logical that we take the Pokemon game's most popular challenge and slap it onto SMT5 Vengeance. Welcome to a new kind of nightmare. Now for those who aren't familiar with Nuzlocks, let me give you a quick overview. In the Nuzlocke challenge, you're only allowed to catch the first Pokemon on each route, you have a level cap to prevent overgrinding, and Permadeath is applied, meaning that each time somebody faints, they're gone for good. And in the case of a whiteout, it is a full game reset. You do not reload your last save, you must restart the entire game from scratch, so this is what we're dealing with in this. And because this by itself is still not masochistic enough for me, we're going to do a hardcore Nuzlocke, which also bans the use of items in combat, with the exception of smoke bombs to flee from enemies. And you will quickly see why this makes the challenge infinitely harder. But I don't want to waste too much time on theory crafting, so we jump right into the action. We start the game, select the hard difficulty, take the hint since we're doing the Canon of Vengeance route, and then go through the opening cutscenes and get to name our protagonist with the glorious return of Mr. Nuzlocke, back for his 5th outing. We walk home from school, get pulled into the apocalypse, and then fuse with Aogami to become an albino. The tutorial battle is nothing special. We just do what the game tells us to do, and then finish the enemy off with a few more Seo casts. The more interesting thing is what happens after the battle as we get our very first level up, so the question is, how are we going to allocate Naobino's stats? We're prioritizing offense, and in a setup like this where the number of possible demons you can bring along is very limited, I decided to go for a magic setup so we can hit all kinds of elemental weaknesses and generate additional press turns. We will also put some points into vitality every now and then to slightly increase Naobino's survivability, considering the challenge is over the moment he gets KO'd. We put the first level cap on screen, which is level 8 for the first boss of the challenge, get the first couple of tutorials about movements and the game's environment, and then reach the first ley line, and here is where I would like to talk about how we're going to approach this. SMT5 doesn't have strict route names or numbers that we could use. In order to differentiate areas, we will use ley lines, so each time we unlock a new one, we are allowed to negotiate with the next demon. Since the game doesn't have random encounters either, we will go with the first demon that is in sight after we unlock a ley line. This kind of removes certain elements of randomness, but it's probably the best way to approach this, even more considering that you often only have 1 or 2 ways to go, so the number of possibilities when it comes to new demons is very limited anyways. We get the Pixie encounter, which as a tutorial doesn't count, and since there is only one way to go after, we run into the first horde of slimes, so this will be our first legitimate demon of the game. Unfortunately, Slime is probably the worst demon to get since it is weak to almost all elements, but this is the very first encounter on the way, so there is no way around it. Especially early on, we will take random encounters very carefully. We primarily target slimes since their multiple weaknesses make it relatively easy to wipe them in one turn. In the beginning of the game, a single crit by the enemy can be enough to wipe a demon, or even Naobino in the worst case, so ideally, we want to get a couple of levels before we move on. Once we reach the next ley line, we unlock the World of Shadows and immediately fuse the Aogami Type 1 essence onto Naobino. The passive skill Rooted Soul increases his max HP and MP by 30, and especially early on, this is a huge safety boost to keep him from going down. With a new ley line unlocked, we can grab yet another demon, and considering that Onmaraki is standing right next to it, it's hard to argue that we should be getting anything different. This means that we also have a full party for the first time right before heading into the first Abscess battle against the 3 Mandrake, so this is convenient timing since we now have full 4 press turns each time we get a turn. We activate the critical Magatsui and start going all out on damage. The plan is to ideally wipe 2 Mandrake to minimize the incoming damage on the enemy's first turn. This worked out perfectly, and while the last Mandrake hit our slime's weakness, we can finish it off on the following turn without losing a single demon. At this point, we have already hit the level cap with Naobino, but luckily the first real boss fight is not very far off, so we continue until we run into Yuzuru, meet Yoko, and then have to battle Glacia Labelas. The boss starts off by attacking Yuzuru and then draws Magatsui. The enemy is weak to electricity, so we can generate additional press turns, while also setting up Rakunda and Tarunda to decrease the enemy's attack and defense. Glacia Labelas likes to use the Stoma to put Mirage onto a party member, but with Pixie having Patra, we can heal that off easily and continue like before. And that is all there is to this battle. Cure Mirage if needed, heal HP to make sure everybody survives, and continue attacking until the boss is down. This was a rather good first boss fight, but the real challenge is only about to start. We increase our level cap to 15, and once Yuzuru splits from the rest of the party, we can keep marching forward until we unlock the next ley line. This is the first ley line located in the middle of an area, so we can go in multiple directions. The one we use is bypassing Oyamatsumi, which as a punishing foe does not count towards recruitable demons, and use the teleporter. In this area we can find Peleolite, which not only is the highest level we can currently recruit, but its special skill Entangling Tendrils is an AoE Tarunda, which also comes with a 40% seal chance, so overall a great skill to have available. We also run into the first Mitamas here, but since we're not allowed to use items, we can't identify its weakness with spyglasses, so we have to guess and hope to get the correct element, which is not very likely to happen. Afterwards, we do our first fusion of the challenge, where we fuse Slime and Pixie into a Neko Shogun. We want to be very selective when it comes to fusion in general, since we're effectively reducing our demon stock that way, but Neko Shogun is especially useful since we get all debuffs on it with Rakunda, Sukunda, and Fangbreaker, which comes with an extra Tarunda as well. We inherit Preda's essence onto Naobino to learn Bufu, since we're going to need that for the upcoming boss battle, and then keep going. It was also at this point that I realized that we can't beat Mitamas by just safe scumming. In places where Mitamas appear on the overworld, or during item finds where the spawn is guaranteed, we can just save before, attempt the battle, and in case it runs away, we reload the save until we guess the correct element. While this may look a little cheap, it's the only way to consistently beat them due to us not being able to use spyglasses. We head towards the next abscess, where we battle Mermaid. Mermaid is weak to electricity, so we cast Seal with both Naobino and Yoko, while Neko Shogun uses Rakunda to decrease its defense. Mermaid can charm party members with Marin Karin, but as long as we get somebody with Patra in the party, we can easily clear it and continue doing damage. The enemy draws Magatsui on the following turn, but since we can do the same and hit for strong critical damage, we get Mermaid down before she gets her next turn and end the battle without any issues. We reach the next ley line shortly afterwards, and while we are in an open area, we don't get a lot of options here. In the field, nearly every direction we go towards has Kate Sif as the first visible encounter, but there is a little cave next to the ley line where we can find Daemon. Daemon's elemental affinities are going to come in incredibly useful for the next boss fight since it nulls dark and resists fire, so we head into the cave to recruit it. For the next Abscess battle, we have to fight two Sudamas. With the enemies being weak to both fire and ice attacks, we can generate a lot of additional press turns, and while the enemy hits 2 weakness hits with Masana against our party, their damage isn't the highest and we can take them out with few issues on the following turn. Once we reach the final ley line before the next boss, we have 2 options. Either continue on, battle the boss and save our next recruitment for after the battle, or turn back and recruit the first demon on the way, which would be a Tsuchigumo. Considering that Hydra is the first real test in this challenge, and the chances of losing at least one demon are pretty high, I decided to go for the latter. Tsuchigumo is already level 13 and has great vitality, so it should be very useful in that battle. It is also one of the few demons in our stock to not have a fire weakness, so our lineup for the boss will probably be Naobino, Yoko, Tsuchigumo, and Daemon, since Neko Shogun and Paleolite are both weak to fire, and if there is something that we want to avoid, it's giving the boss additional press turns. We are still 2 levels off until we hit the level cap, and although level differences in Vengeance aren't nearly as brutal as in the original game, the extra stats might still help and might make the difference in the end whether a demon survives an attack or not. Once we hit the level cap with Naobino, we head to the World of Shadows, where we first inherit Daemon's affinities onto him for the Resist Fire and Null Dark. After that, we make sure to get everybody in the party Bufu, so we can hit the boss's weakness. Yoko as a guest party member unfortunately can't inherit essences, but with her having Tarunda and Dia, she's mostly going to be occupied with debuffing and healing anyways. We also inherit Rakunda and Naobino, as well as Tsukunda and Tsuchigomo, so we have a full set of debuffs available. With all preparations set, it is time for the first major boss fight of the game as we take out Hydra. As mentioned before, Hydra is weak to ice attacks, so we attack with Bufu to generate additional press turns, while also starting to debuff the enemy's stats, especially Taronda and Tsukunda, to not only take less damage, but also increase the party's chances of dodging attacks, which would result in the enemy's turn ending immediately. We do enough damage on the first turn to immediately trigger the boss's first Magatsui draw, and here is where the no items restriction hits the hardest. The intended approach is to figure out the boss's special attack, and then use an elemental dampener according to the element of the upcoming attack, in this case Dark. In our setup, this is not possible. We have Naobino and Daemon, both of which now Dark, so they will block the attack entirely. Tsuchigomo and Yoko are going to guard to not only reduce the incoming damage, but also prevent the auto-critical from the Magatsui from happening. Both should be able to take the hit, and with Yoko having Dia, we can heal up on the following turn, but the big surprise came shortly after. Toxic Breath through the guard only did 20 damage, so there isn't even a need to heal on the following turn. This was honestly a huge relief, as I was afraid that Toxic Breath would take them down to low HP, so either this battle isn't nearly as bad as I remembered, or we prepared really well going into this. Either way, we can now continue doing damage to the boss with Bufu, while keeping all debuffs up to prevent them from falling off. Unfortunately, I made a big mistake soon after. When Hydra goes for the next Magatsui drawing, we accidentally did too much damage and pushed it into the next phase where the first couple of tentacles fall off. This means that the enemy will always go for Frenzy on the next turn, which is a random target physical attack, and with us having no way to block physical hits, this could be a big problem considering each hit also crits. Since we only have 3 press turns left, we can't guard with the entire party, so we guard with Naobino and Yoko, while Tsuchigomo makes sure that the accuracy debuff stays up. And while Frenzy crit both non-guarding party members, the follow-up attack on Yoko luckily missed, so we can heal up again with Dia. Another problem that is slowly arising though is that we're starting to run out of MP. Hydra is low on HP already, but we need to take it out quickly now, because we can't keep up our debuffs for much longer. We tank another Frenzy, commit everything we have left into a Magatsui crit turn, and after Naobino dodges another attack by the boss, we can take it out on the following turn and complete the battle without losing a single party member. As mentioned before, I was really worried going into this that we were going to lose half of our stock, if not worse, but in the end, it wasn't nearly as bad as I expected it to be. We increased the level cap again to level 18, get the return pillar from Goko, and then continue making our way towards Tokyo Tower. On the way, we also complete the quest from the mermaid where we have to battle a Pazuzu. Considering Pazuzu is similar to Hydra with its ice weakness and dark Magatsui attack, I figured we might as well do this while we are already at it, especially since there is 50 more glory hidden behind it. In general, we will not cover most side quests in detail to keep this video from getting too long, so we will only go through those that have an actual effect on the challenge. With Hydra down, we can now start buying essences at Gustave, which is useful for changing affinities, or for certain skills that we can now easily inherit onto the entire party. We reach the next ley line shortly afterwards, which means we can recruit a new demon again. We have a couple of paths that we can go here, but with the upcoming boss having a physical weakness and our lineup mostly consisting of magic-based demons so far, we go back up the hill where we can find a bunch of Bicorn to recruit. Beatdown is a physical attack which damage scales off the user's current HP, so it should do great as long as Bicorn has full HP. For the next abscess, we battle Ipondatara, which is weak to light, and is one of the few non-regular encounters that we could theoretically insta-kill with Hama. Unfortunately, we have no demons with light skills in our stock, so we have to approach it the regular way by depleting its HP. Ipondatara exclusively uses physical attacks, so once we have Taronda set up, the incoming damage is manageable and can easily be healed with Yoko. The most annoying thing about the battle is that we can't hit any weakness, so we play the battle rather slow until the Magatsui Gosh is full, and then commit to a full crit damage turn with which we can take down the enemy shortly afterwards. We have one more ley line left before the next boss fight, so one more opportunity to recruit a new demon. This time around, we don't get many choices though. We have two different ways to go, and on both of them, the very first enemy in sight is a Nightvaras. It has great fire attacks, which is going to help later, and with level 17, it is also one of the higher level demons in this area. We are also about to clear one more abscess as we battle 3 Leon and Side. The enemies are weak against Force and Light, both elements which we can't currently exploit, but with a full Magatsuki Gauge, we can deal lots of high damage critical hits and take the first enemy down before they even get their first turn. Their normal and dark attacks don't do much damage considering most of the party is still immune to dark attacks from the Hydra battle earlier, so we can easily take out the remaining enemies on the following turns. Before we head into the next boss fight, we will complete another side quest where we battle yet another Leon and Side. In this side quest, we can decide with which demon we want to side with, and we want to choose Apsaras as she will join the party once the side quest is completed. We will treat those story-granted demons like gift Pokemon and allow them regardless of our current leyline status, since they are considered free. The reason we want Apsaras specifically is because she's immune to the charm status, which comes at a convenient time since the upcoming boss will open the battle by casting an AoE charm attack that on hard mode is basically guaranteed to hit unless the target nulls the status. We continue battling regular enemies until we hit the level cap with Naobino, and also use a few grimoires to get our party closer to the cap as well. We inherit Apsaras' essence onto Naobino to have 2 party members in our lineup who know charm, have him learn Patra from a Pixie essence, and then continue with the story as we run into the Kadishtu for the first time and battle Nama. Since we have a full Magatsuki bar, we will immediately start the battle by dealing as much damage as possible to the boss. If I remember correctly, Nama is the only story boss weak to physical attacks, which is the reason we brought back Tsuchigumo and recruited Bicorn earlier, as both are more physical focused and can deal good damage to the boss with the physical skills. Beatdown especially does over 100 damage when Bicorn is still on full HP. As mentioned before, Nama will always open the battle by using Capitulate to Pleasure, which charms the entire party unless the target's null is status. This is the reason why we have now Naobino and Apsaras on the first 2 slots in the lineup, so they can immediately cure our physical attackers with Patra before we continue doing damage by hitting the boss's physical weakness. During this, we also make sure to set up debuffs on Nama. With Tarunda up, her attacks don't do that much damage, but we have no heal in our current party lineup. Because of this, we will switch in Yoko for Apsaras to heal up, and then continue like before. Nama will use Capitulate to Pleasure again after a couple of turns, so we switch back into Apsaras to clear the element just like before, and then switch back into Yoko. When she draws Magatsuki, we make sure to guard with everybody not nulling Dark, and with the boss already being on low HP, we can take her out on the following turn without further issues. We still haven't lost a single demon so far in the challenge, and while this is surely going to change as we progress through the challenge, it is still rather surprising we haven't faced any serious RNG setbacks yet. With Nama out of the way, we can also increase our level cap for the final time in the first area to level 22, and then continue progressing through the game. In the final Abscess fight of the area, we face off against Yushisa. The enemies are weak against fire, so we use a combination of Agi and Mirage Shot, as well as Beatdown to inflict damage on the enemies. Mirage Shot has a chance to inflict Mirage on the enemies, which helps us dodge their attacks and immediately ends their turn if they miss. And that is all there is to that battle. We continue exploiting the enemy's weakness for additional press turns and have no trouble taking the enemies out. Once we unlock the last ley line of the first area, we can also recruit our final demon for now. And while it looks like we have several different paths we can go to, it doesn't really matter as every direction has a horde of Ibondatra appearing first. Ibondatra, like Bicorn, is physically focused, and considering we haven't seen the last of Nama yet, having a couple of demons that put out good physical damage is going to come in very useful. After doing a couple of side quests, we also have Daemon power up in the Demon Horde and learn Agilao, which is great timing since we're going to need a lot of fire damage for the final boss fight of the area. Before reaching it, however, we face a mini boss battle against Eligor and 2 Andras. We brought back Paleolite for this battle specifically because of its unique attack entangling tendrils. As mentioned earlier, it is an AoE Tarunda that also has a 40% chance to seal the targets, which is exactly what we're counting on. Sealed enemies can only use regular attacks, which would drastically reduce the incoming damage and the chance of a party member being KO'd. This time, the RNG gods are also on our side as we managed to seal all enemies, so in combination with the attack debuff, we should be fine. All enemies in this battle are weak to electricity, so we start taking down the Andres, while Tsuchigumo also applies an extra Secunda to further decrease Eligor's accuracy. After a critical Magatsui turn, we can take both Andres out before the status wears off. Since Paleolite's seal is no longer needed, we swap in Bicorn for its physical damage. Even though the seal status has worn off at this point, with a full attack and accuracy debuff, there isn't much danger coming from the enemy any longer, and we can take it out soon after. Before we head for the final boss fight of the area though, we do some cleanup first. We get the last couple of Mii-Men we missed on the way, do the majority of side quests that we can complete, and then start preparing. Even though our level cap is technically at level 22, we get ready once Naobino reaches level 21, since I wanted to get out of Area 1 after already spending what feels like quite a while in here. The one level gap should hopefully not make a big difference. Considering the first boss of the upcoming segment is also level 22, we can also make sure to avoid over-leveling that way. We head into the World of Shadows, since we want to adjust our attacks and affinities as well. First of all, we want Null Force on Naobino, so we inherit Sudama's essence to have the correct affinities. Next up, we use Nozuchi's essence to teach Naobino Taunt. This will make him draw enemy attacks much more often, and is going to be essential for damage reduction since we want the bosses to hit into Naobino's Null to immediately end their turn. We also use Onmaraki's essence to inherit Agi onto everybody on our offensive line to maximize the number of weakness hits we can generate. Onmaraki's essence can be bought at Gustave, so we have an infinite supply of Agis to make sure everybody gets it. Once all of that is done, we enter the building, meet Nuwa, and have to fight her. Nuwa will always open up the battle by using Mazio, which is why we brought in Neko Shogun since it's the only demon in our stock to null electricity. The plan is to hit her fire weakness with all party members to generate press turns, and then guard with the rest of the party to take the hits. Unfortunately, this didn't work out as planned since Yoko missed with her attack, but even with Yoko not being able to guard, she can tank the attack without issues. Naobino will now use Taunt to draw Nuwa's attacks, Yoko will heal up, and we switch out Neko Shogun for Tsuchigumo to set up debuffs. If Nuwa attacks with Sanma, Naobino will draw her attack, and with him nulling Force, it will end her turn immediately. After a couple of turns, she will start to draw Magatsui, which means she will attack with Sacrifice of Clay on her next turn. This not only deals AoE force damage, but also reduces the attack and defense of all targets it hits by one stage, so while Naobino is safe, we need to guard with everybody else to prevent the critical hits. Unfortunately, the guard won't prevent the status debuffs, so going forward, we need to keep everybody's HP top since even a standard Mazio could wipe party members now. Another problem that arises the longer the fight goes on is that we're starting to run out of MP on the party. Without items, we currently have no way to properly regenerate MP, and if we can't keep the taunt up, we risk losing party members to unmitigated attacks. Luckily, we only need to deplete half of her HP to end the battle, but by the looks of it, we might run out of MP before we even get there. After the second Sacrifice of Clay, we are pretty much out of MP, and at this point panic set in. We can't properly attack any longer, and Taunt is also about to run out. Because of this, we start switching out party members to at least get another 2 or 3 attacks on Nuwa before our next turn comes up, and luckily this is all it took to end the battle. Not going to lie, if this battle had dragged on for another turn, there is a good chance we would have lost most of our party. Running out of MP prematurely is something that will probably become a major problem as we progress through the challenge, especially later in the game with useful skills getting increasingly MP intensive. For now, however, we are still fine, so after talking to Nuwa and Yakumo, we head back to regular Tokyo, get some backstory on the happenings, and then head back to school for now. To prepare for the upcoming boss battle, we head back into the World of Shadows and get CEO on all our magic attackers with the help of Mandrake's essence. Similar to Onmaraki's essence earlier, Mandrakes can be bought at Gustave, so we have an infinite supply of it. Since we're still lacking a means of AoE healing, we inherit Miracle Water onto Naobino, so we are prepared for party-wide damage. Once we're ready, we head to the train station, get ambushed, and have to battle both Nama and Glacial Labelos simultaneously. Nama's elemental affinities and attacking behavior haven't changed since the first battle, which is why we have Apsaras in the first spot to be prepared for the incoming charm attack from Nama. Glacial Labelos is still weak to electricity, so we activate the critical Magatsui on turn 1 and target Glacial Labelos' electricity weakness with the mages, while Bicorn covers the physical side. Like in the Eligor battle earlier, we will use Entangling Tendrils from Peleolite to decrease both enemies' attack. The seal side effect is theoretically possible, but with both targets resisting the status, the chance to land it is incredibly low. Glacial Labelos will now mostly attack with force damage, so we hope that it targets Naobino since the combination of Null Charm and Null Force will immediately end the enemy's turn. Once we healed the charm from Capitulate to Pleasure, we continue hitting the enemy's weaknesses and heal up with Miracle Water whenever needed. When the bosses start drawing Magatsui, Glacial Labelos will use Mirage Assailment on the next turn, so while Naobino nulls the attack, we guard with the other party members to reduce the incoming damage. Nama uses Capitulate to Pleasure again on the next turn and charms everybody but Naobino with the attack. After the charm status prevents us from switching Tsuchigumo for Apsaras, we could theoretically heal the status with Naobino, but with Glacial Labelos' HP being really low, we prioritize offense instead and manage to take the first target down. Glacial Labelos deals more damage compared to Nama, so taking it down first is probably the smartest way to approach the battle. With Nama being the only target left, we switch out our mages and bring in the physical cavalry to target her weakness. At this point Bicorn is out of MP, but with it being the only demon to null dark, we still keep it in the party to immediately end the enemy's turn, especially in Magatsui turns where Apsaras barely manages to survive the incoming attack. Speaking of Magatsui, one more crit Magatsui turn on our end is all we need to defeat Nama and complete the battle. Like Nuva before, this got pretty intense towards the end, and at this point it's honestly a surprise that we still haven't lost a single demon yet. It will be interesting to see how much longer we can keep this up before something bad happens. With this, we also raise our level cap again to 24, and then start inheriting Sen on our mages thanks to Kodama's essence, which is another one purchasable at Gustave. At the temple, we meet Goku again, and then head towards the school, which is being attacked by demons, where Tao also joins the party as another guest character. There are a couple of mandatory regular enemy battles here which we would usually skip and head straight for the boss, but we're going to stay here for a little longer, because for the first time in this challenge, we lost a demon in here. Not because of bad preparation, not because of a strategic error, but because we finally got SMT'd. What does that mean? Well, we have this battle against Incubus and Menonangle, which started off as usual. The enemies ambush the party and draw Magatsui. Nothing major so far. We go for Mahama on Tao and hope for the insta-kill on Menonangle, but instead get a miss. While we were still able to take down Incubus, the second Mahama doesn't insta-kill the enemy either, and once the enemy's turn comes up again, Menonangle goes for Sanma and one-shots Bicorn from full HP thanks to the auto-critical hit. While this was unlucky, it was only a matter of time before we lost our first demon, and it's still much better for it to happen during a random encounter than against a boss where the demon might be a vital part of the strategy. While we are not allowed to use Bicorn any longer, we are still allowed to use it during fusion, so we head to the World of Shadows and fuse it with Aidvaras to get a Feng Huang. Feng Huang is another magic user, and with it having Wind Breath from the start, it is a great upgrade for the upcoming boss battle considering Lamu is weak to force damage. Speaking of Bicorn, we inherit its essence onto Naobino for Null Dark, and then head straight into the next boss battle against Lamu. The battle is split into two phases, where in phase 1, we have to eliminate the tentacles first before being able to target the boss itself. The tentacles are weak to both force and light, so Mahama from Tao, as well as Wind Breath from Feng Huang are a huge help here. Lamu will open the battle with Babylon Curse, which is an almighty attack that also inflicts mud on the target, which will make it lose a full press turn while also preventing additional press turns from weakness attacks. Ippon Datara will use Tarokashi to buff Tao's attack, while Naobino will again use Taunt to draw the enemy's attacks. While Lamu can use Bufula, most of the time it will use Mudo, which Naobino nulls, and therefore immediately ends its turn. Thanks to Miracle Water, we can easily heal up, and with a buffed Mahama and some more Wind Breaths, the tentacles are cleared just 2 turns later. With the boss now fully exposed, we continue attacking with Force and Light Magic, and are able to end the battle before it even gets another chance to act. Also, am I the only one that feels sorry for Sahori? In the Canon of Creation, she goes for revenge and dies. In the Canon of Vengeance, she comes to her senses and still dies. Poor girl can't get out of this one way or another. Either way, once Lilith disappears again, we have some more backstory and then head towards the next area of the game. We raise our level cap to 28, and with a new ley line unlocked, we are allowed to recruit our next demon. We have a few ways to go now. We can either cross the bridge or drop down onto the road where several Andres are waiting, or we drop down all the way where there is a horde of Jack-o'-lantern waiting. Andres is neither a good physical nor magical demon, so we decide to go for the latter, drop down, and get ourselves a Jack-o'-lantern. Jack Aguilao is not only a single target medium fire attack, but also comes with an additional Tarunda. Having debuffs on the party is always useful. While rescuing the students that are spread throughout the area, we reach the next ley line not too long after, so we get another chance at recruitment. Again, we have 3 different paths available. On the left path there is a group of Oni, on the right a group of Legion, and straight ahead we run into the same horde of Jack-o'-lanterns we already got before. Considering that Ippon Datara is currently our only decent option when it comes to physical damage, we head towards the Oni to get some more physical damage support. It's also worth pointing out that until now, we haven't had a single failed negotiation. SMT5 is much more lenient during demon negotiation compared to Nocturne or even SMT4, but it's still somewhat surprising that they went this smoothly so far. We head towards the next Abscess battle against 2 Jack Frosts. As always, we try to hit the enemy's weakness with fire while increasing the party's defense with Marakukaja from Tao. In theory, we could also bring Impelia Light for entangling tendrils, but this approach works just as well. The enemies can use Jack Bufula, which not only deals moderate ice damage, but also decreases the target defense by 1 stage, so keeping our defense up is definitely a good idea. Other than that, the battle is largely straightforward. We activate the critical Magatsui once the bar is full, and with only 1 target remaining, the battle is won soon after. After some more story progress, we run into the next ley line, which means we get to recruit a new demon. Unfortunately, our stock is currently full, so we either dismiss our demon or look into possible useful fusions, and since we just hit level 27, we can take Neko Shogun and Tsuchigumo and fuse them into Attis. Attis is the first demon we get with an elemental block ability. Those can come in very handy, seeing as we're not able to use any dampeners, so certain elemental blocks might make future battles much safer. During fusion, we also carry over the most important debuffs to ensure our full debuff kit still remains available. Having made some more space, we head into the next recruitment, and although we have a few options, it is quite clear that we enter the room right next to the ley line where a group of Jack Frosts are waiting. Jack Frost has the special skill Jack Bufula, which, as mentioned in the Abscess battle earlier, deals moderate ice damage while also lowering the target's defense by 1 stage. And this is the first demon negotiation that almost backfired badly. The first Jack Frost wanted all of Naobino's HP, leaving him at 1, before flipping us off and just leaving the battle. Instead of healing up with Yoko, we negotiate with the second Jack Frost in this encounter, and then screw up the negotiation. Luckily, the enemy attacked Yoko on the following turn, because if that target had been Naobino, this attempt would have been over. 3rd time's the charm, we successfully recruit Jack Frost, and can continue thanks to having more luck than brains. We have 1 more Abscess battle before heading into the next boss fight, as we take on 2 Makami and 2 Feng Huang. Yoko is the only one who can hit the enemy's weakness with Mudon, but with the critical Magatsui we can deal major damage on the first turn. Again, we use Marakukaja with Tao to build up our defense and increase the party's overall bulk, and then continue. Later in the battle, we bring in Jack Frost for Feng Huang, which has run out of MP at this point, but with only 2 more targets up, it's just a few more turns before the last enemy goes down, and we clear another Abscess. We reach one more ley line though, this time around we're not going to recruit a new demon just yet. The next boss is waiting right after it, which means that once we defeat it, we can head into the next area and potentially recruit better demons. Both Inogami and bugs are not really what we're looking for at the moment, so recruiting after the boss is probably the better option. With Naobino already at level 28, we hit the cap so we can't grind any longer anyways. Before we head into the boss battle though, we prepare first. We inherit Sen on both Naobino and Jack Frost, and then bring Oni into our party. Oni will serve as our tank for the upcoming battle due to its resistance to physical damage, so we also feed it a couple of grimoires to raise its level. Once preparations are finished, we head into the next battle against the Kadishtu as we take on Ashef. The boss is weak to force attacks, so we use Sen with Naobino and Jack Frost to gain additional press turns, while setting up Taunt and Marakukaja with Tao. It would be reasonable to assume that with Resist Physical and Taunt on Oni that this battle is trivial since Ashef only uses physical attacks, but unfortunately that is not the case. Not only can she use Axle Claw which hits random targets and is unaffected by Taunt, the lower her HP gets, the more she just straight up ignores Taunt and starts attacking random party members. This is the reason why for the first time in this challenge, we will apply both an attack debuff on the enemy as well as a defense buff on the party. Ashef can be a huge troll and we want to be as bulky as possible to avoid losing any party members. Since Oni will still draw a lot of attacks, we also make sure to guard with him on every turn to reduce the incoming damage even further. Unfortunately, we are not off to a good start as Ashef immediately dodges the first attack of the critical Magatsui turn. The plan was to get additional press turns and cast 2 Jack Bufulas to also get her defense down, but that still has to wait for a little longer. Madness Needle has a chance to put panic on the target, but we can cure it with Patra on Naobino. With attack debuffs and defense buffs up, Axle Claw also seems manageable when it comes to damage, so unless the same target gets hit 3 times, or the party gets critted, we should be fine as long as we keep our HP up. Tao can heal up with media if needed, while the rest of the party makes sure to keep our buffs, debuffs and taunt up while also dealing damage with sand. The Voracious Salvation on Tao is a perfect example of why we play the battle this safely as it still deals 69 damage to her, and that is with a full attack debuff and defense buff. The strategy works well, and although Tao is running out of MP rather quickly chugging both Marakukaja and media at times, it is still enough to keep all our buffs up until we can defeat Ashef and beat another Quadishtu member. With that, we also raise our level cap again to level 32. We still have our new recruitment from the last leyline to do, and even though we mentioned earlier that neither Bugs nor Inogami are useful, we make a change of plans and recruit Bugs. Bugs' moveset itself is not that important, but the demon itself is a very important fusion ingredient for a special fusion we want to do later on. The alternative would have been to recruit a Shikyuji behind the warehouse, and while this would have been a very good choice as well, the plan I have in mind is probably more future-proof. I'm not going to spoil too much just yet, but veterans of the game probably have noticed that we still have our Jack-o'-lantern as well, so you might already know where we're going with this. Either way, it's not all too far until we reach the next ley line and get another recruitment option. To the right we have a bunch of Nagas, but the real treasure lies to the left side as we recruit none other than the almighty Mothman. To be honest, we're mostly getting Mothman for the memes, but there might be some niche use in it with Mapatra for a party-wide status heal, a long electricity block and some additional elemental attacks. We jump right into the next Abscess battle as we take on a Basilisk. Basilisk itself is a rather simple battle as it only attacks with physical attacks, but Toxic Cloud especially makes this really annoying since it can poison several party members. We have Patra on Naobino which, while useful, is only single target, so we might be better off just ignoring the status considering that Basilisk will recast it on the following turn anyways. The poison damage ticks can be cured up with Tao's media, so they're not all too bad, and a couple of turns later, the enemy is already down again. Since this is the only Abscess battle on the way, we skip forward to the final leyline before the next boss, where we get one more opportunity to recruit a new demon, which we will again postpone until after the next boss fight. This time for real. Speaking of which, we need to properly prepare before heading in there. We inherit Ruinous Thunder on Albino as it's the first heavy elemental spell we get access to in the game. With the upcoming boss being weak to electricity, this also comes at the perfect time. The more important part though is Cyranup's essence. Cyranup is the first demon accessible with Restore, a passive ability that restores 10 MP every time you hit an enemy with either a critical hit or a weakness, and this is going to be a game changer. In a lot of boss fights so far, our main issue was that we ran out of MP towards the end of the battle, making them much more dangerous than they needed to be. Well, at least for our offensive demons, this is going to be a thing of the past now, as Restore cuts down the overall MP cost of our magic casters by more than 50%. Tier 1 spells, which only cost 10 MP or less, become free to cast this way. Unfortunately, you can only find one Cyranup essence on the overworld, but luckily there is a bunch of them spawning in this area as well that we can battle and hope for an essence drop after the battle. It usually takes a couple of tries until they drop the essence, but this is a very well invested time. The only thing we need to watch out for is to ambush them and then take them down in a single turn, as they can cast Hama, which could potentially one-shot Yuko if she gets targeted with it. Other than that, the battles are not that bad though, and considering we still have one more level to go until we hit the cap, this grind accomplishes two things at once. With Restore on everybody, we should be set now. We inherit Seo and Jack Frost, bring back Oni into the party, and then head into the next boss fight against Fionn McCool. We immediately activate the critical Magatsui to open up the battle and start going all out on the boss. Jack Frost uses Jack Bufula to decrease the enemy's defense, Yoko and Naobino use Sionga and Ruinous Thunder to deal damage, and Oni sets up Taunt to draw the boss's attacks and then either uses Fangbreaker or Blinding Strike to decrease his attack and accuracy. Fionn mostly uses physical hits, so Oni's physical resistance is a great way to mitigate the incoming damage. When the boss draws Magatsui, we switch Edison to set up Fire Block, since the boss will always use Maragion on the following turn, which we can easily null that way. And yeah, that is all there is to that battle. With full debuffs up, the party deals great damage, and thanks to Restore, we don't have to worry about running out of MP too soon again. Addis takes care of the Maragion, Oni tanks the physical attacks, and we keep doing damage until the boss is already down a couple of turns later. Not going to lie, compared to A-Chef before, this battle was a cakewalk. Getting a heavy electricity attack in Ruinous Thunder right before the boss certainly helped, but Fionn McCool basically being a more controllable version of A-Chef made this much more easier compared to the previous boss fights. With Fionn out of the way, we raise our level cap for the final time in Area 2 to 38 and continue advancing while we reach the next ley line soon after. With our stock currently full and only no longer needed, we fuse it with Onmaraki into a Poltergeist. Similar to bugs before, Poltergeist will not see much active use, but will mostly be there as a fusion ingredient for a special fusion later on. The new slot will be filled with Yakshini, and this one is very important. Yakshini has the passive trait Pandemonic Feast, which increases the accuracy and max hits of multi-hit skills like Wind Breath or Fire Breath. While this doesn't sound that special at first, you will later see that this is going to be a vital strategy for certain boss fights, but more on that when we get there. We continue with the next Abscess fight as we battle a set of 3 Baphomets. For this one, we bring in Poltergeist and Yakshini instead of Jack Frost and Tao, since the enemies like to attack with fire and dark attacks, both of which they don't really handle all too well. Again, we start the battle with the critical Magatsui to deal as much damage as possible, and with Yakshini in our party lineup, Poltergeist Shockbound can benefit from the increased total hits on the enemies. We take out the first 2 Baphomets pretty quickly, and with only one enemy left on the field, the battle isn't any dangerous any longer, and we can finish it off on the following turn as well. With the next ley line, we can also recruit another demon, but since pretty much every direction only has lower encounters coming up first, we don't really get much of a choice here anyways. Loa is a decent dark demon though, so it might come in useful occasionally still. Since there are no more abscesses or mini bosses on the way, we continue on to the next ley line once we get to the fairy village where we can recruit another demon. And it's only now during rewatching the game footage that it seems like we never picked up any new demons here. Seems like this was completely forgotten. Weird. Anyways, the most important part during this segment is this little side quest with a pixie where we have to play detective. As a reward for completing it, we not only get a glory apple, but also the unread neutral parry app, which unlocks the Magatsui skill Strategize, probably the most broken Magatsui skill in the entire game. Strategize lets you pass turns or switch party members in or out without consuming press turns. This by itself is not really that broken yet, considering all buffs or effects are gone the moment you switch a demon out, but with another special trait we will acquire later on, this is going to be our first ingredient of our endgame strategy. That is, if we even make it there, but only one way to find out. There is one more ley line at the river, and unlike last time, we don't forget to recruit a new demon this time around. Down the river, we either got a set of Eligor and Barifs, or we go the other way and approach one of the Forniers that are floating around. We go for the latter again, since we're mostly focused on magic attackers, and Forniers is the better addition under those circumstances. There is also one final abscess we need to battle here as we go up against Thoth. Thoth likes to heal itself with Diorama, so we need to make sure we can outdamage its healing. This is not the only issue though. Thoth is the first demon to attack with Megiddo, an almighty spell that we can't null, so we put up a Marokasha with Tau to increase our defense. Other than that, the battle is nothing special. Thoth likes to decrease the party's attack with Mataronda, so the battle takes a while due to the reduced damage, but with our increased damage, we never run into danger of losing a party member, so we continue on until the enemy is down. We collect the last golden apples, bring them back to the fairy village, and then head towards the last ley line of Area 2, which is right before the final boss fight of this area. The encounters in sight here are either Black Ooze or a Lilim. There probably is not much use in Black Ooze, so we go for Lilim and get an encounter which also includes a Setanta, and considering we're lacking physical damage dealers, Setanta might actually be the better option. Unfortunately, we screwed up the negotiation and it ran away, so we have to fall back on Lilim regardless. Speaking of Lilim, there is one more side quest that we want to do which gives us another free demon. Depending on whether you side with Lilim or Principality, they will join you after completing the quest, and since we just got Lilim a few minutes earlier, we obviously go for Principality here. Principality is a strong magic demon which also nulls light, and this might come in handy for the upcoming boss fight. After reaching level 38, we do another fusion where we fuse Peleolite and Forneus into a Mushiwu. Mushiwu is the last ingredient for the special fusion we have been mentioning for a while, and of course we're talking about Alice. With Alice being level 40, we can't fuse her just yet, but once we get there, we will get access to one of the strongest magic casters in the entire game, so we only need to make it through the final boss fight of Area 2. But that is easier said than done. Before that, we still need to prepare. We inherit Fire Breath and Wind Breath from Feng Huang's essence on all our attackers, inherit Archangel's affinities onto Naobino, and then head towards the final boss fight of Area 2 as we fight Yuzuru and Hayataro. This boss fight can be cheesed pretty badly, but for us this is only partially possible. Yuzuru will always open up his turn by either throwing an ice or a light shard, which gets followed by Hayataro taunting the party, making it unable to target Yuzuru. If you repel or drain those two elements though, Hayataro will never get a turn and you can easily take both of them down. In our case, we got Jack Frost which absorbs ice and immediately ends their turn, but unfortunately we can't drain or repel light just yet. We have Null Light which only removes 2 press turns, and with them having 4 in total, we can't prevent the taunt from happening. We also don't have access to Makara Karn to put up a magic shield yet, so the plan is to do as much damage on the first turn as possible with the critical Magatsui, and then keep the party alive until the taunt wears off. After the initial drain from Jack Frost, we switch him out for Yakshini, activate the critical Magatsui, and then go to work with Fire Breath to hit Yuzuru's weakness, which already gets him down to about half of his HP. We tank the Lightning Shard, then have to go up against Hayataro, which is not that easy, since its taunt attack Witness Me also increases its evasion by 1 stage, which can lead to party members missing their attacks. If we need to heal up, we can either use the Arama with Principality for single target healing, or Miracle Water from Naobino if we need a party-wide heal. Yuzuru can also use Sleep Gems to put party members to sleep, but luckily this only hits Jack Frost. We continue hitting Hayataro's force weakness with Wind Breath until we take it out, which leads to Yuzu reviving it with half HP. At this point he's unprotected though, and with our Magatsui bar being refilled, we can bring back Yakshini, activate the critical Magatsui and then do big time damage with Fire Breath, which is enough to take Yuzuru out and win the battle. This honestly went better than expected. Going in, it wouldn't have been a surprise if we got trolled and lost one or more demons here, but everything went like we were hoping for, and we can raise the level cap again to level 46 and finish off Area 2 after the entirety of the fairy village got turned to salt. We go through a couple of cutscenes and not too long after end up in Area 3, and since we're starting from a new ley line, this also means that we can recruit another demon. Before we can even explore the area though, we get interrupted by a power, which is the first of several mandatory battles against those guys. The single encounter is not that big of an issue yet, but later on we will have to go through several groups of them, but luckily they are all weak to dark, and we are only one more level away from fusing Alice, which should be a huge help against those encounters. Now back to actual recruitment. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of options again when it comes to demon variety in the beginning of the area, as there is a group of narcissists waiting the moment you go down the hill, so we just have to go with those. Luckily, they are great to grind some experience on, so once we reach level 40, we immediately head back into the World of Shadows to fuse the aforementioned Alice, who will replace Jack Frost for regular encounters going forward. Area 3 is by far the largest in the entire game. It honestly wouldn't come as a surprise if the entire map was designed with the developers no longer having to worry about the Switch's hardware restrictions, but still we will try to cut it down and only go through the most important parts. The power battles always follow the same pattern. Activate the Magatsui, throw out dark attacks with Naobino, Alice and Yoko, and try to take them down in a single turn, which usually works out just fine. The first Abscess battle is against Dormarth and Senri. For this one we brought back Principality and Lilim for the force attacks to take care of Dormarth, while Naobino targets Senri with Ruinous Thunder. Sexy Dance can be annoying, but is nothing that could potentially wipe the party, and although we had to switch demons a couple of times due to running out of MP, we can still take both enemies out without bigger issues. After activating the next ley line, we recruit a Valkyrie since again this is pretty much the only option, but having some physical attackers probably won't hurt too much, so we shouldn't complain. Same thing with the follow-up ley line, as the only enemy available here is a Compendium, so we're going to recruit it as well. Technically, we could already head back into the new section of the first area and go battle the next major boss of the challenge, but since we still have a couple of levels until we hit the cap, we might as well stay here and start exploring the rest of the area until then. This includes the next Abscess, as we battle 2 Lamia and 2 Orthrus. The most dangerous part of this battle is probably Orthrus' Axle Claw attack, so we put up a Tetrakarn on Naobino and hope they hit into him to immediately end their turn. This is also the reason why we target the Lamias first, since they like to use dark magic, which could potentially one-shot Tao if we get unlucky. Yoko sets up Mataronda to decrease the incoming damage, while Tao uses Mazukukasha to buff the party's accuracy and evasion. Once Alice is too low on MP to cast Tetrakarn, we switch over to Fist Block from Yoko and continue on attacking the enemies. Yoko shortly afterwards is out as well, so we switch into Jack Frost, who can hit the enemy's weakness, though this is a double-edged sword as their fire attack could deal big damage to it as well. With Alice also completely out of MP, we switch into Valkyrie, and this was the point where panic started to set in. Running out of MP on most of my attackers on a random Abscess battle was not what I thought would happen going into this. With Tao also out of MP, we no longer have a proper means of AoE healing, so even though Lilim can deal good damage with her attacks, we might run into issues soon, and this is exactly what happened on the following turn, when Fire Draco Strike one-shot Jack Frost from full HP. We bring in Principality as a replacement, and even though we managed to complete the battle without losing another demon, this still left a sour taste in my mouth. This challenge has been going pretty smoothly for quite a while now, which led to me underestimating everything that is not a major boss. Luckily, we only lost Jack Frost, who is not on our A-team any longer, but this is just a friendly reminder this is still an SMT game after all, and it would be wise to prepare for literally every encounter we're going into. With Jack Frost unavailable going forward, we head into the World of Shadows to see if we can fuse it into anything adequate, And we don't have to look for very long because Jack Frost and Narcissus fuse into Yoshitsune, yet another great demon like Alice, though on the physical side of things. Yoshitsune is level 45, so we can't fuse him just yet, but this is already a great piece of information that is going to come in very handy once we reach the level requirement for its fusion. We continue on with the next Abscess battle as we take on Mushiwu, Succubus, and a Compenda. Luckily, those three are much easier compared to the previous one, and after our first turn, 2 out of the 3 targets are already almost done, so we just deplete their last HP, and with Mushiwu being the only one left standing, it's not all too long until the battle is over. And because we like Abscess battles in this challenge, we head right into the next one against Ansu. Ansu exclusively uses physical attacks, so by casting Fist Block, we're literally invincible against its attacks. The only problem is that Yoko is going to run out of MP very quickly, casting it every single turn, so we need to try and take it down fast. As a backup, we can also put Tetrakarn on Naobino, but since Ansu is not guaranteed to hit into it, this is only partially useful. We should have inherited Taunt back onto Naobino to be properly prepared. Guess I never learn from my mistakes. Anyways, we get lucky as Ansu plays along, and we can take it out a couple of turns later without any more casualties. We activate the next ley line, and with it, another chance to recruit a new demon. Like with the last 2 ley lines, we only have one direction to go, which directly leads us into a pack of Orphreys, so this will be our new demon for this segment. Or maybe not, as it spawns with 3 Succubus, and thanks to us screwing up the negotiation, Orthrus runs away, so we have to take Succubus as a backup. Not like this is a problem, because the next ley line coming up shortly afterwards also has a pack of Orthrus right next to it, so this would have been a dupe had we recruited it before. With Naobino reaching level 45 in the meantime, we return to the World of Shadows since we can now fuse our War God Yoshitsune, so we finally have a really strong physical attacker that will accompany us for quite a while now. The 100% crit rate of Hasuo Tobi is going to be extremely helpful in not only dealing damage, but also when it comes to generating additional press turns. And what better way to test it out than in the following Abscess battle against 2 Madgasser. The main thing about this battle is them poisoning the party with Toxic Cloud, and whatever that toxic they're spraying is, it's working since it removes like 90% of a character's HP after every attack. Unfortunately, we don't have any demon with Mapatra in our A-team, but Tao's Meteorama is luckily strong enough to get everybody back up on their feet. Since this is the only dangerous thing about this battle, we have no issues taking the enemies out and continuing on. We have one last ley line we can activate here, which means one more new demon as well, where we run straight up to recruit a Kaiwan. Kaiwan is the first demon in our stock to know Makarakarn, and while we can always inherit it from essences as well, it's good to have additional backups in case we need a magic mirror setup. There is also one more Abscess here, which we will ignore for now since demons in it are higher leveled than the upcoming major boss, and after what happened before, we're not going to take any risks of potentially losing more party members. Speaking of major bosses, we hit the level cap of 46 soon after, so we head back into the first area where we can now access the Egyptian branch. Yuzuru and Ichiro join the party as guests, and we head into the World of Shadows to prepare for the upcoming battles. We inherit Bufula and also Evergreen Dance on Naobino. Evergreen Dance is a skill which greatly charges the Magatsui gauge, so we can fire those off more often. It can only be used once per turn, but this is still very useful to increase the frequency in which we can use Magatsui skills. Before we can battle Kansu, we have to go through Isis and 2 Lamias first. Lamia is weak against ice, while Isis is weak against dark attacks, so now Bino and Alice will attack the enemies with their weakness, while Yoko will set up Matarunda, and Yoshitsune deals critical damage with Hasuo Tobi. Unfortunately, we missed with the very first attack, so we're not off to a good start, though luckily the incoming damage with Matarunda up is not very high. If needed, we can heal up with Miracle Water from Naobino, and then continue on doing damage. And that is it mostly for this battle. We slowly take the enemies out one by one, and are able to win the battle before they have a chance to get the critical Magatsui turn off. Before heading into the battle against Kansu, we inherit Eligor's affinities onto Naobino for Null Fire, and reteach Taunt so we can draw the enemy's attacks. Kanzu, like the Lamia before, is weak against ice attacks, so we once again use this to our advantage to generate additional press turns. Yoshitsune can decrease the enemy's defense and accuracy with Pierce Armor and Blinding Strike, while Alice decreases the enemy's attack with Tarunda. Kanzu will either attack with fire attacks, which now beat on nulls, or physical attacks, which should be manageable with the attack debuff put on it. During critical Magatsui turns, we use Carnage Fang with Yuzuru since it deals increased damage during critical hits and overall deals more damage than Bufula. Alice's Die For Me also hits really hard during those turns despite not hitting a weakness. Either way, once we set up most of our debuffs, the battle is relatively simple. If Kanzu draws Magatsui, we bring in Principality to cast Light Block in order to avoid the following Mahama on, and that's all for this battle. Just make sure to not drop Taunt on Albino, keep debuffs up, and deal damage until Kanzu is down. With Kanzu out of the way, we increase our level cap to 49 and then head back into Area 3 to continue where we left off earlier. Yuzuru leaves the party, Ichiro gets turned into Salt by Mastema, so we're back to the same gas character setup we had before. With the fire immunity on Naobino, we can also tackle the Apses we left behind earlier as we battle Ifrit, Florus, and Ouroboros. We decrease the enemy's attack and accuracy with Matarunda and Masukunda, set up a taunt on Naobino to draw in the incoming fire attacks, and then go to work on the enemies. We also set up Fire Block with Addis whenever we can since the enemies like to use Maragidine, which hits like a truck. By the time Addis is out of MP, Florus is already gone, so we should be able to handle the two remaining enemies without it. Tao heals up if necessary, and while we need to switch our party members around due to lack of MP, we have no problems with the rest of the battle and continue dealing damage until they are down as well. Yuzuru rejoins the party in Tokyo, but since we still have some leeway until we hit the next level cap, we complete some of the requests we have gotten in the meantime for additional experience. Once we hit level 49, we head back into the World of Shadows to prepare for the upcoming boss battle. We inherit Taunt on Lilim since she's the only demon we currently have which knows electricity, while not being weak to force at the same time. Yakumo loves to attack with the electricity attack Galvanic Slash, so we need to make sure we can draw those without taking damage. We also inherit Agilao onto Naobino, and then head towards Yosoji Temple where we have to take on Yakumo and Nuwa. The idea is to take out Nuwa with fire attacks first since we can taunt Yakumo pretty well, so he should be easier to manage. The enemies also get an additional press turn if Nuwa is targeted with an attack that she resists or repels, so we need to take her out first before we can focus on Yakumo with dark attacks since Nuwa resists those. Tao is responsible to keep the enemy's attack debuffed while also increasing the party's defense to make sure nothing bad happens if Yakumo decides to go for something else than Galvanic Slash. When the enemies start drawing Magatsui, we bring in Yoko to set up Fist Block to guard the following Deathbound, and then switch back into Lilim to continue drawing Yakumo's electricity attacks. And in case you wondered why we want to keep buffs and debuffs up, here is a good example as Yakumo can also use Critical Slash and quickly get us into trouble even with everything set up. Luckily Nuwa is down soon after, so that is one last thing we have to worry about. With Yakumo being the sole survivor, we can now bring in Alice and have her target his weakness with Die For Me. The much bigger issue is that Yakumo will now start using Critical Aura, which makes his next attack not only 100% critical, but also 100% accurate, so we need to bring Yoko back in to set up Fist Block in order to avoid taking too much damage. Unfortunately, Fist Block takes 50 MP, so there is no way we can just constantly spam it, and this is what is giving us major troubles the longer the battle goes. While we can tank Deathbound without anybody going down, the crit gives him an additional press turn which he uses to set up another Critical Aura, so we have to be prepared for constant Deathbound spam now. Tao running out of MP and not being able to heal any longer does not make things any easier either. Luckily Yakumo is on low HP at this point, and we're able to barely take him out in time before we run into major issues. This could have easily taken a turn for the worse had this gone any longer, but luckily we made it and can continue on. We raise the level cap to 50, Yuzuru leaves the party again, and we return into Area 3 to continue exploring. We hit a new ley line, which means we get access to another demon, but again our selection is very limited as there is a group of Dakini in basically every direction we can go, so this will be our new demon whether we want it or not. We inherit Kuropoku's affinities on Naobino for the Null Ice to be prepared for the upcoming fight, and then head straight into the next boss battle against another Kadishtu member in Agrat. Agrat is weak to electricity, so Ruina's Thunder does great work when it comes to damage. The boss will always open up the battle with Queen's Decree, which is an almighty attack that has a chance to crit due to her passive trait, so we need to immediately debuff both her attack and accuracy to make sure we suffer no casualties from this attack. This is the reason why we go for Mataronda on Yoko, while Yoshitsune hits Blinding Strike, and Tao increases the party's defense with Marakukasha. With buffs and debuffs up, the attack luckily is rather tame, and with Naobino dodging, she doesn't even get a chance to follow up on it. We now switch in Feng Huang for Yoko, but not for the reason you might think. Agrat can use both Mabufodyne and Maragidyne, so we need somebody with Null Fire to counteract that. Naobino will set up Taunt to draw the single target Bufobarian when she draws Magatsui, since this hits like a truck if it is not nulled. Once all of that is done, we can focus on damage, and that is pretty much it. Make sure to keep all buffs and debuffs up, keep doing damage with the party, and Agrat is already down not too much later. The first turn of this battle is probably the most dangerous thing, but our strategy worked out perfectly, and we can increase our level cap once again to 52. We also have another ley line to activate, which means we get another chance at a new demon, but again our options are limited, as there is a pack of Madgasser in pretty much every direction we can go. We also have one final Abscess in Area 3 as we take on Ridra. With buffs and debuffs up, the incoming damage is not a huge issue and can easily be healed up, so there is not much to say about this one. Just throw out damage, keep your party alive, and continue on until the enemy is down. There is one last ley line right before the final boss of the area, but unfortunately we can't recruit any new demon here. One way leads directly into the boss battle, while the other one leads to a pack of Kaiwan, which is a dupe. Generally though, we have a pretty strong setup, so overall this should hopefully not be such a big issue. With that, we need to get ready for the final battle of Area 3, and this is probably one of the most dangerous battles in the entire challenge against the Kadishtu, as there are a ton of things that can and probably will go wrong here. First of all, we inherit Hamaon on Naobino and several other demons, so we can target Lilith's weakness. We also inherit Inflaming Divinity from a Naobino essence, which is a unique support skill that maxes all stats of one party member. We also need to get Mapatra back on Naobino, since the Magatsui attack Kadishtu Entropy has a chance to charm the entire party, which we obviously want to avoid. This should be everything we need, so with the party prepared, we headed to the battle against the Kadishtu. Even though we're fighting all members here, we only need to defeat Lilith to end the battle, so we focus all our efforts at her while ignoring everybody else. The Kadishtu start by drawing Magatsui and go for the aforementioned Kadishtu Entropy attack, which not only has a chance to charm party members, it also does big damage, so we need to make sure to debuff the enemies and buff our defense in order to take it. Buff and debuffs overall are not that useful in this battle, since they like to negate all those, but in order to stay somewhat safe, we want to try and have at least one stage of attack debuffs and defense buffs on for most of the time. Naobino buffs himself, and then Principality, who returns for this battle since it is the best magic user we have that comes with Hamaon, since Lilith is weak to light attacks. When Kadishtu Entropy went off, Naobino got charmed, and it was at this moment where I realized that we never inherited affinities with Null Charm on him, so this just makes the battle even more dangerous than it already is. Yoko will now start to put up a fizz block every turn. The Kadishtu get a total of 5 press turns, but Lilith herself will never attack the party directly, and A-Chef will always use physical attacks, so we can use fizz block to remove 2 of the press turns on each turn. Tao will heal up and apply buffs or debuffs, while Naobino and Principality try to damage Lilith with Hamaon. If Yoko has a free turn, she will go for Energy Drain to heal some of the MP back. This is not much, but even 5 more MP can make the difference on whether or not she's able to cast another fizz block. In terms of incoming damage, we mostly have to worry about Agrat's magic, since A-Chef will always use physical attacks, and Nama will either dekasha the party or decrease their stats with Mataronda or Marakunda. You may have also noticed that we don't use the critical Magatsui in this battle at all. The reason for this is that we want to save our Magatsui buff for the point where Yoko is out of MP and can't use Fizz Block any longer. Once that happens, we trigger Sea of Stars with Principality, which is a strong AoE MP heal, which gives us a couple of more casts of Fist Block for the next few turns. The enemies will charge Magatsui and go for another Kaddish to Entropy after a while, but with a stage of attack debuffs and defense buffs, we can tank it with no casualties. Kaddish to Entropy is honestly much better than many of their other attacking patterns, since they charge before, so we got 2 turns where we don't really need to worry about most things. And the following turn shows exactly why. Lilith again wipes their debuffs, Ashef hits into the Fist Block, Nama uses the Kasha, and then Agret throws out a Maragitine that unfortunately crits Principality due to her passive trait and wipes it from full HP. Since there was a realistic chance that we'd have at least one casualty in this battle, we came prepared and can now bring in Addis. Addis is not that special, but with its fire immunity, it should be able to easily tank most of Agret's attacks. Unfortunately, Addis gets hit by Lilith just 2 turns later to remove the Fist Block, and then gets critted by Deathbound. Thanks to the Endure, it still hangs on for now, but we need to be really careful. The even bigger issue we now have is that we can't use Sea of Stars any longer with Principality gone, so once Yoko runs out of MP, we need a backup strategy. And this one comes in the form of Alice, who has Tetrakarn in her move pool. By putting up Tetrakarn on Nahobino, we can immediately end the Kadish's turn if they hit into it. The only problem is that both Axrica and Mist Rush target random party members, so there is no guarantee that she will hit into Nahobino. Overall, this is still a decent backup option, and with Lilith already in red HP, we need to hope that we can endure the enemy's onslaught and get her down before Alice runs out of MP, even more so considering that Tau is also getting low and we absolutely need her as a healer. And luckily this worked out perfectly. With both Addis and Tau out of MP, Lilith hits into Nahobino's Tetrakarn and actually wipes herself before the other Kadishtu members have a chance to get us into even deeper trouble. Going into this boss fight, it was clear that there is a high chance we would lose one or several party members, so getting through here with only Principality being wiped is actually a rather positive result, considering there was a good chance we could lose the challenge here. Either way, Aogami dies, Abdiel kills Yuzuru, we fuse with Tsukuyomi to create a new Nahobino, raise our level cap to 58, and then head towards the World of Shadows. With Principality no longer available, we fuse it with Kaiwan into a Sarasvati. We put Wind Breath back on Nahobino, and then get ready to enter Shakan, where we get welcomed by 2 powers and 2 Dominions. The enemies will always go first and immediately put up a dark block to prevent the party from exploiting the dark weakness. Luckily this doesn't matter since they're also weak to force damage, so we start throwing out Wind Breaths with Nahobino and Feng Huang, while Yoshitsune goes for Hasso Tobi. If they draw Magatsui, we bring in Mothman to set up Electricity Block to block the Shock Bound and then continue doing damage. With the help of the critical Magatsui, we can take out 3 out of 4 enemies within a single turn, and once the last power is by itself, it can't do much any longer and we can easily finish off the battle. Since Shakan is basically 90% platforming, there isn't much to mention here other than the new ley lines that we discover. Shakan is very straightforward in the sense that there is usually only one possible path to take, so we won't get a lot of options when it comes to new demons. There are even several ley lines without any new demons or no new demons in between, so we're just going to mention our new recruits here. First we get an Aura Boss, then fuse an Ifrit to make some space in our stock, as well as a Kushinada Hime since we have no healers anymore now that Tau as a guest party member is gone. We recruit a Nue, Kinki, fuse a Basilisk to make some more space in our stock, and then recruit the most important demon here in Yolungar. Yolungar is a decent magic demon, but the main reason why we want it is because of its Magatsui skill Dance. Dance will always give you max hits on multi-hit attacks, and you will soon see why this is going to be quite the upgrade. We inherit Profaned Land on Nahobino, and then head into the only mini-boss battle in this segment against Huge Cherub, which is not really hard if you know their AI pattern. They are weak against dark attacks and will charge up several turns before unleashing big force damage with Wind Breath. This pattern is very predictable, but they only act like this if both of them are alive at the end of your turn. If one of them goes down, the other one will start spamming Judgment Light, which is a piercing multi-hit light attack that we need to avoid at all costs. In terms of damage, we have now Bino and Alice doing damage with the dark attacks, while Yoshitsune goes for Hasso Tobi. Yakshini basically is only here to increase the possible max hits of Die For Me, and once the cherubs start drawing Magatsui, they are already weakened enough for us to put them away on the following turn. We recruit a Pazuzu as well as a Florus, and with that we're pretty much done with Shakan, so once now Bino hits level 57, we head towards the next major boss fight against Abdiel. Theoretically, we still have 2 levels until we hit the level cap, but that is not going to be needed, and you'll quickly see why. Abdiel is scripted to always target now Bino, and we will use that to our advantage. Alice will be our main damage dealer in this battle due to Abdiel's dark weakness, while Yakshini will set up defense debuffs with Pierce Armor. We raise all stats with Inflaming Divinity on both now Bino and Alice, and with that we're all set up. Abdiel will always use physical attacks on the first 2 turns, so we guard those with now Bino, and now you need to pay attention because this one will be over in a heartbeat. You might have noticed that we have a Yolongar in our party, which is solely in our setup for its Magatsui skill Dance we briefly mentioned earlier. Dance gives you max hits on multi-hit attacks, which is already pretty good, but if we combine that with Yakshini's straight Pandemonic Feast, which gives +2 on max hits for multi-hit abilities, you probably get where we're going with this. On turn 3, we activate the Dance Magatsui, switch Yolongar out to only have 3 party members in battle, and then we're off. Die For Me will now hit 8 times, dealing about 350 damage with every single hit, and you can see how we absolutely annihilate Abdiel. We set up Light Block with Yakshini since Abdiel will always use Light's Descent on her 3rd turn, but she never even gets that far as we are able to easily take her out before that happens. Compared to the Quadishtio, this was a cakewalk. We raise our level cap again to 72, meet Tao on the rooftop, she transforms into a goddess, and with that we're off into the final region in Taito. And here's where it gets a bit complicated. Taito is extremely open, so we could theoretically head in all kinds of directions, though we will stay around the first leyline for a while because we are quite a bit underleveled at the moment. Before we go for our first recruitment, we have to make some space in our stock, so we've used Akini with Flores to get Cybele. We are already looking ahead to some of the endgame fusions we want to do, and she's the first step in doing so. As for our first demon, we go for Hecaton Kairos, as it is another demon with the Pandemonic Feast trait, so we have a backup in case Yakshini goes down. For levels, we mostly stay around the area and grind on Lugaru since they are weak to light and can be insta-killed, which makes grinding quick and easy. The first leyline we activate is Ueno Park, since the enemies on the way there are probably the lowest leveled ones. In terms of new demons, we only have limited options though. There is another pack of Hecaton Kairos that we already got, so the only other option we have are the Dekarabia that get spawned by Nebiros when you get close to it. We also need to make some space in our stock again, so we've used Lilim and Pazuzu into Loki, then head towards Asakusa Main Street for the next leyline and recruitment, and this might be the most important ones in the entire game as we get Gog Magog here. But this Gog Magog is not going to stay in the party for very long. We've used Cybele and Dekarabia into Lachesis, and then combine it with Gog Magog to fuse our Habaki, where it's absolutely vital that we carry over Critical Aura. I'll get into details why later. Up next, we ascend Komagata until we reach the next leyline. Now obviously there are no demons up here, but we can drop down all the way to the floor to recruit yet another Gog Magog. But we're not done just quite yet. In the World of Shadows, we fuse a Hydra and then combine it with Nue to fuse a Yatagarasu. We activate the leyline at Shinobasu Pond and recruit a Lugaru, and with that we should be all set. Those of you who are familiar with some of the very overpowered strategies probably already know where we're going with this. For everybody else, get ready for something good. Gog Magog and our Habaki are going to absolutely destroy the rest of the game, and we're going to take a look at this Abscess battle here to show you how. So let's start with Gog Magog, who will be our main damage dealer going forward. Gog Magog is purely physically oriented and has a trait called Vengeful Might. What this does is that it increases the critical damage inflicted by it by 5% for every weakness that you have in your current party. Gog Magog already has 5 weaknesses, our Habaki has 4, Hecaton Kairos has 2, and Nahobino, depending on the affinities inherited, usually has 2 as well, so that makes a total of plus 65% critical damage. But how do we make sure that we crit, and how does all this even come together? Well, this is where the Magatsui's skills Strategize and Arahabaki come into play. If you remember early on near the fairy village, we did the Pixie side quest to unlock Strategize, a Magatsui skill that lets you swap party members in and out without consuming press turns. This by itself is useful but not broken, since you will lose all buffs and effects when you swap out demons. Luckily, Arahabaki is there to counteract that with its trait Affable Hospitality. This trait copies Arahabaki's current effect levels to each demon that is summoned into the main party. Now, if this is all a little too much theory at once, let's look at this during battle. We max Arahabaki's stats with Inflaming Divinity from Nahobino, and then cast Critical Aura, which makes the next attack 100% accurate and guaranteed to crit. Then we will activate the Magatsui skill Strategize, which is, by the way, the reason we got Lugaru, since we need 2 neutral demons to cast it. Now we will switch Gogmagog out and back in, which copies the full buffs including Critical Aura from Arahabaki onto it. Now we got a fully buffed Gogmagog, which is guaranteed to hit and crit at the same time, so we bring in Hackathon Kairos to increase the max hit of multi-hit abilities and throw out a Rampage to deal damage to the enemies. While Critical Aura is gone now, this doesn't matter as we can just switch Gogmagog out and in again, and the stats will be copied from Arahabaki yet again. Since the Magatsui skill Strategize lets you do all of this without consuming any press turns, we basically get 8 fully buffed critical hits out of Gogmagog for every time we activate the Magatsui, which is usually more than enough to completely annihilate everything that is not resistant or immune to physical hits, and even that won't matter, but more on that later. So yeah, that was a pretty complicated explanation, but it shows just how absurd and broken some of the things the game offers can be. And this will be our main strategy for pretty much the rest of the game. This setup is also used in speedruns to get through the game as fast as possible and is fondly known as Gogmagog gaming in the SMT community. Since we have gotten lots of high level essences in the meantime, we're also going to change our setup a bit. We put Enduring Soul on everybody to have a safety anchor in case things go wrong, and then optimize Gogmagog with High Restore, which gives back 20 MP after every weakness hit or critical, effectively making Rampage a free skill. It already comes with Fist Pleroma and Critical Salad, so we should be set on it for now. We also inherit Debilitate on Nahobino, so him and Arahabaki can debuff the enemies to prepare for Gogmagog's Path of Destruction, and then head towards the first of 3 keys as we battle Belzebub. Gogmagog Gaming takes care of this one, so once we set up Inflaming Divinity and Critical Aura on Arahabaki, we activate the Strategy Magatsui and then obliterate Belzebub with Rampage before it even gets another chance to become dangerous. We continue on with the battle to get the remaining keys as we battle both Odin and Zeus. Again, we set up Inflaming Divinity and Critical Aura, put Tetrakarn on Lugaru since they will always go for a physical attack on turn 1, and then activate Strategize for some more Gogmagog gaming. Rampage is highly variable in the amount of hits it can do since it can land anywhere from 2 to 7 times with Hackathon Kairos in our party, but even if we get on the bad side of things with luck, it is still more than enough to easily take both enemies out before they get their next turn. With all 3 keys in possession, we can now raise our level cap to 79 and enter the Temple of Eternity. You may have noticed that we haven't really talked about abscesses or new ley lines for a while, and the reason for that is that we simply don't need to any longer. Everything that is not immune to physical gets annihilated by Gogmagog, and since this will be our endgame setup, there is no need for any new demons any longer either. This is also going to be the same for the battle against Metatron. Metatron is literally the only boss fight in the entire game that has no weakness. To make this a little more fair, Atlas decided to give him less HP compared to other bosses, but since he's still neutral to physical attacks, we have no problem setting up Strategize and then take him out without further issues. The only thing we need to watch out is putting Makarakarn on Lugaru to make sure he's not insta-wiped by a light attack. With that, we enter the Empyrean, but we're getting stopped by Ichiro and Fallen Angel Abdiel, so we have to get through them first, but just like everybody else, They stand no chance against the onslaught that is Gog Gaming, so once we survive turn 1, we set up strategize, and a few attacks later both of them are down for good. We raised the level cap to 83, and then entered the Empyrean for good, while we have a couple of mandatory battles we have to go through, like the Melchizedeks that you need to beat on the same turn, the battle against Raosha, or the final one against Alilat. All of them fall prey to Gog Gaming though, so they're not really worth mentioning for the most part. This is also the last time we will use Rampage, as we will replace it with other skills that are more suitable for the upcoming boss battles. We not only inherit High Fistful Aroma from Chiu's essence we found in the Empyrean, we also carry over Health Thrust, which is a single target resistance ignoring physical attack, as well as Megaton Press, since we need some consistent AoE damage for the battle against Tiamat that is coming up. We inherit Fornia's essence on our Albino for Drain Ice, and then head into the battle against Tiamat. Tiamat itself resists everything other than ice which it drains. The way you're supposed to do this battle is by taking out the head so they drain HP from Tiamat to regenerate. This is the reason why we inherited Megaton Press just earlier. We set up Inflaming Divinity and Critical Aura, as well as Taunt with Naobino. Tiamat will mostly attack with ice attacks, so thanks to Drain Ice, we can immediately end its turn and completely disregard the individual heads before activating Strategize and doing damage with Megaton Press. Tiamat has a ton of HP and we're not quite dealing enough damage to end the battle in a single Magatsui cycle, but luckily Drain Ice works wonders here, and we have no problem setting up another Strategize and continue with Megaton Press until the heads stop draining HP from Tiamat, at which point a single Health Thrust is enough to win the battle. Tsukuyomi dies but Aogami returns, we fuse into our initial Naobino form, raise the level cap to 84 and continue on. We return to the World of Shadows to inherit Figment Slash onto Gog. Figment Slash is a low accuracy move, which always crits in case it hits. With it being an auto crit attack though, we don't need Critical Aura any longer, so we will replace it with Charge to get another 80% boost to our attack. The only downside to this setup now is that we don't have a 100% hit rate on our attacks any longer, but there are ways to still optimize it, which we'll get into shortly. Also, in case anybody wondered, we're going Law route in this challenge, as the battle against Tehom is the much more interesting one compared to Mastema, so once Yoku absorbs whatever is left of Tiamat, she transforms and we get going. Tehom starts out being weak to all elements. The entire gimmick of this battle is that you need to hit each weakness once, tank the big Magatsui attack, and then start all over again. Of course, this is not what we're going to do, at least not to the full extent. We will go with our usual Gog gaming strategy, while at the same time making sure that we target at least one weakness each turn to prevent Tehom from using Abyssal Beckoning, which is an almighty attack that drains HP and MP with an extra chance to inflict sleep. Instead of Hecaton Kairos, we now switch in the Yatagarasu we've used earlier on the 4th position. Like mentioned before, we can't get a 100% hit rate on Figment Slash, but with full buffs on the party and debuffs on the enemy, we already got good chances. Now combine that with Yatagarasu's trait Helmsman, which increases the accuracy of the party member after it by 35%, we should have a decent enough chance to hit the boss. Just like Tiamat before, Tehom has a huge HP pool, so we're getting nowhere near enough to take it down in a single cycle. Judging by its HP bar, we probably need 3 cycles, so we have to make sure to continue doing elemental damage to the boss towards the end of the turn. When Naobino is not casting Inflaming Divinity or Debilitate, we can use Evergreen Dance to greatly charge the Magatsui bar to get towards the next strategy cycle faster. And then on the 2nd cycle it happened. We set up everything, go for the attack with Figment Slash, and immediately miss. While we are doing everything to get our accuracy up as high as possible, there is still a chance for the attack to miss, and this single miss might have come at the worst possible time, considering we just lost 4 opportunities to attack. Because of this, we completely ditch the cycle and just bring in Loki to hit one of the 2 remaining weaknesses that the boss still has. And because Loki is quite a bit underleveled compared to the rest of the party, the following Agibarian wipes it from full HP, even with full buffs up. And this might become a problem because we have Loki in this battle specifically because of its elemental variety, so we need to start switching around some more now. We bring in Rang that we got in Taito before the Beelzebub fight, since it is literally the only demon in our stock that knows force attacks, which is the last element remaining, and because this game really wants to kill the challenge towards the end, we miss with Wind Breath as well. Luckily we are allowed one miss each cycle where Tehom will wait, so that is still fine, but missing several times in this battle already has me worried. After hitting the last weakness, Tehom will charge for its Magatsui attack, but before that, we still have one more strategy cycle that we can throw in. This time around, none of the attacks miss, but for the last press turn, we swap out our Habaki and Yatagarasu and bring in Kinki and Kushinada Hime to soak up the damage of Inception of Chaos, since both of them got Endure on, and we want to save the Enduring Soul of our main party if possible. After Inception of Chaos, Tehom's affinities reset, and it once again becomes weak to all elements, so ideally we end the battle before the next Inception of Chaos comes up. We set up another strategize cycle, and thanks to Gogmagog hitting all attacks during this one, we can deal enough damage to take Tehom out for good. Even with Gogmagog's strats, this was still a clutch battle at points due to attacks missing, but we made it with only one casualty, and considering that we're marching towards the final boss, this shouldn't matter too much. We raise the level cap one final time to level 90, and then prepare for Lucifer. We inherit Impeller's Animus on our Habaki instead of Charge. While this only raises your next attack by 30%, we need the Pierce effect from it to bypass Lucifer's physical resistance to be able to crit with Figment Slash. And since that is all we need, we now head into the final boss battle of the challenge against Lucifer. Again we set up everything we need for Strategize, and then put up Taunt and Makarakan on Nahobino. Lucifer will always use a single target magical attack on turn 1, so we can immediately end the enemy's turn, and once we're set up with Strategize, the only thing we need to do is not miss in order to win. It was also at this point that I noticed that Lucifer is actually only level 85 and not 90 like I first thought, but honestly, with Gogmagog strats, this really doesn't make a big difference overall, and with it successfully hitting all Figment Slashes, Lucifer goes down in a single cycle, and we successfully beat the challenge. And that is it, everybody. We beat SMT5 Vengeance with a hardcore Nuzlocke rule set. And I have to say, I really like the progression of this challenge. From guarding through Magatsui turns, to MP consumption optimizing, to the overpowered strategy called Strategize, this challenge had a big variety of things we went through. I did think about doing the necessary side quests to battle fully powered Lucifer at first, but with me being sick for 2 weeks and losing tons of time, I didn't want to waste any more time getting this video out since the strategy would have been the same regardless. We did go back to Shiva just to show that this isn't really a problem either with Gogmagog, but that is about it. I was thinking whether we have a shot at Satan as well, but Satan needs a very specific setup that we probably won't be able to pull off with the demons we acquired throughout the challenge. Maybe I might give this one a shot in the future, though I very highly doubt we can beat Satan on the first try, but let me know if this is something you would like to see. With that being said, special thanks go out to this video's top channel supporters Noarel, Shurker, Matthew Frack, Chipsel Naga, FurdyC25, Mr. Sandman, BlazeMH1 and Cryptax, as well as all other channel members and patrons. Becoming a channel member or joining the Patreon gives you 48-hour early access to all videos among other small perks, so if you want to support the channel even more, there are plenty of ways to do so. That is all for me today. I hope you enjoyed the run as much as I did, and I hope to see you all next time as well. Until then, take care.